have MCKL-UITM. My name is Fahmi. I'll be chairing the debate for today. Paneling with me is Faris, Cham Yumpet, Nafisa, and Liu Lian. Okay, sorry for missing that. Okay, so just a few reminders towards our audience. Please silence all your phones. Keep your discussion at a minimum. Do not exit this room during speeches. Do not use the front doors. Please use the back doors if you want to exit the room. Without further ado, on the motion that this House believes that God should reveal Himself, I would like to call upon the Prime Minister.
In the beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. And apart from a few isolated cases, he or she or it has not made himself revealed for the next 2,000 years approximately. Side OG is here to tell you today that it is completely necessary for God to reveal Himself as of today, right now. 4 things coming to you from Side Opening Government. 1, that it's extremely strategic for God to do this. Secondly, that God has a principal obligation to do this. Thirdly, that now as opposed to any other time in human history or any time in the future is the best time to do this. And fourthly, why our world in all aspects looks better than whatever world exists under opposition side. But before I get into that, what does our world look like? We say, or what does God look like? We say that first of all, God looks like an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent being who created humans and loves created everything basically, and loves all His children. We say that this is the God found in all Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and for religions that are polytheistic, such as Buddhism or Hinduism. We say that oftentimes there is a central God who has functions identical or similar to this God in the first place. So we're not, and for religions that are based in philosophy, such as Zen Buddhism or religions of that sort, we say that they do not require a God to function in the first place. So what our world looks like is that God reveals Himself through any way that He sees fit. A burning bush, a wahyu, after 40 days of meditation, a billboard on the Manhattan State Building. We don't really care. Before I go on into our points, any clarifications on what God looks like and how God's going to reveal Himself? No, alright. First of all, why it's utterly strategic for God to reveal Himself as of right now. Today's world is a world in which the rate of atheism is rising at a faster rate than ever before. It is a world where scientific progress has thoroughly negated most of the miracles that God has made in the past. We say that if God does exist, God's express purpose in this world would of course be to save all His children, to prevent all of them, as many of them as possible, from going to hell, given that He is omnipotent and omniscient. We say that today all the conventional atheistic or agnostic arguments would be dismissed through the revelation of God, simply because God's existence would be enough to negate every single scientific or otherwise argument that God doesn't exist. We say that this would put an end to the rising rates of atheism, which under God's model is an extremely morally abhorrent act. We say this would put an end to the misuse of religion and religious fanaticism. More on that later. But most importantly, on why it's strategic for God to do this right now, the human population, and bearing in mind that humans as God's chosen children are the ones who are able to enter heaven or hell, or whatever reincarnation you believe in, are numbered the most in today's world right now, 7-point-something billion, if I'm not mistaken. We say that today, as opposed to any other time in history, God is able to sway more people to the path of light, whatever that light may be, at a much more effective rate than ever before. So we say that it's incredibly strategic for God to reveal Himself right now in order to achieve His goals. But secondly, why does God have a principal obligation to reveal Himself right now? As the creator of mankind and the person who sets the rules, we say that God is responsible to save as many of His children as possible. We say that having created a world in which sin exists, in which rape exists, in which people far too often die for no reason that humans can see, God has an obligation to reveal Himself. Now to explain to us, to all the people who believe in this hall, why these things happen. And for those of them who question their faith right now, why do all these awful things happen? We say that, and this ties in a bit of our first argument, we say that God has the obligation to return the favor to His children. Under religions that have some sort of concept of a second coming, we say that this is also an obligation for God to do so, given that God knows best. But even if said opposition doesn't agree that God has a principal obligation to do so as the creator of mankind, we say that pragmatically God's revelation is the best outcome for humanity. for exactly the same reason, to use an analogy, why we allow judges to set the rules of common law, because they know more than us when it comes to law, and obviously they are in a better position to set rules related to the law. God is omnipotent and omniscient, and for those reasons, Him knowing more than any human could ever possibly hope to know, we say that His rules when it comes to religion, and His choices when it comes to religion, and any effects in this world are from a better perspective than and more justified than any other concepts made by humans. We are willing to bite the bullet here and say, yes, human rights are a human construct. Gay people, if it says in the Bible, do deserve to burn in hell because God says so, because God, after He chooses to reveal Himself as the true God, does know best. Thirdly, why now specifically is an incredibly important time to do so. We say that if God chooses to reveal Himself, now will be an extremely crucial time in human history to do so. Because let's take a look at the world around us, ladies and gentlemen. Xi Jinping has recently been re-elected without a term limit. People like Trump are now in charge of this sole superpower on the planet. The Novichok incident proves that Russia is now a rogue state capable of acting like a gangster in today's world. We say that apart from the political spectrum, let's take a look at climate change, the fact that there's been irreversible damage dealt to the world, and the fact that the current scientific consensus is that a mass extinction on a level that is unprecedented and on a greater scale than any of the 6 or 7, I forgot, mass extinction events happening before this is most likely going to be unstoppable. We say that this mass extinction, which is on the way, is very much likely to happen, and it is for these reasons that that now is an extremely good time for God to reveal Himself. Why is this so? Because I'll take you in a minute. Why is this so? Because this means that all the people that God manages to carry out His or her purpose. I'll take closing first.
Sir, why do you think that God showing His face will suddenly cure all the problems in the world?
Alright, that's my fourth point. God showing His face will instantly cure all the problems in the world because of how the world looks right now. How does the world look right now? We have people misusing religion. We have people... this is my fourth point, why our world looks better. What we think is going to happen in our world is that good will be maximized. What's most likely to happen in our world, once the world population sees that, oh look, God does exist. We believe that most of them will want to get into heaven, even if they don't truly like God. So that's the worst case scenario. But what's more likely to happen is that most of them will be willing to look towards light. And even if there are some fringe atheists like myself who will never listen to a God, we say that they're going to burn in hell anyway, and those harms exist on both sides of the argument. We say that under our world, good will be maximized, a moral good. Why? Because, well, the definition of what's morally good or not is set by God. So we say that good will be maximized under our world. We say that peace is much more likely to be able to spread. Why is this so? Because in all religions there is a universal theme. There are universal themes. Spread peace, love thy neighbor, treat others as do unto others as you would like others to treat you. I forgot the exact wording. But we say that these universal themes will be reinforced in a world where God without a doubt exists. And even if opposition wants to come up here and say their world is better because God is left morally ambiguous, we say that our world, the pure existence of a God, which is undeniable, will sway most, if not all, the human population to the path of good, maximizing the welfare of its citizens, maximizing the amount of moral good in the world, maximizing the affirmation of all the religious people on the planet. For all those reasons, incredibly proud to propose.
Okay, before we continue with side opposition, I would like to remind all participants to use the mic when you want to perform a POI.
Sorry, I didn't know that was a mic.
Use the mic so that everyone else can listen. Okay, so without further ado, let's call upon the team from opening opposition to start debate from opposition side. Here, here.
Yeah. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Do you need some?
Hello, finally. side government came up here and tried to prove to us why that the revelation of God is in the best interest of humanity and religion. The problem is, they never actually proved to us why these benefits exist and why God would have the incentive to carry out these benefits. I'm going to start off this debate by clarifying a few things and telling you what the debate looks like inside opposition, and move on to our argument. Firstly, we think that this debate is about assessing the impacts of the revelation of God, what lies in the best interest of religion and humanity as a whole. Secondly, we take the stance that God should not reveal himself, and that God not revealing himself is going to bring more benefit than harm. A few key characterizations in this debate. Firstly, what is religion, right? Religion inside opposition is a way of life and a set of values that revolves around a certain God or a faith in God. We'd like to also clarify what the revelation of God might certainly mean. Inside opposition, we believe that the revelation of God is basically God revealing himself to the common person and not just the prophets. Moving on. I'm going to tell you that, firstly, we do concede that God exists in our side, and we don't think that this debate is whether or not God exists, right? Our first argument is a principal justification of why there's existential high value in the intangibles. Firstly, what is the role of God in religion, right? We tell you that God is the creator, destroyer, and sustainer of humanity. That is what most people believe, and that is what is in the scriptures. We tell you that God is omnipresent, all-hearing, almighty, and all-seeing, that God knows everything, and that God is the one who appointed the messengers to write the scriptures. Secondly, what is the value of religion to people? We tell you that a common individual would look to religion as guidance and hope that things might get better one day. In terms of socially, politically, economically, financially, whatever it is, we look at it we look at religion as a way for people to hold these faiths and hold these beliefs and hold this hope in essence. Moving on to my third point and my third level. What are the harms when God reveals himself? Firstly, I'm going to argue to you that it directly affects people's mindsets and how they think as a whole. You see, in a religion, in a faith, when you subscribe to religion, you are constantly encouraged to always be on a positive mindset and remain in this positive mindset regardless of how things are, regardless of how the situation is, and regardless of how discouraging the situation may be. We tell you that when the revelation of God comes, we encourage a society that will look for immediate validation and immediate benefits in all things. We tell you that this is extremely problematic in a society where we always have to reflect on the moral high ground when it comes to... I didn't start my timer. Starting now. 5:30? Okay. We tell you that the main benefit of God not revealing himself is to ensure that individuals constantly reflect on the moral high ground and not on immediate validation and immediate benefits. When it comes to anything, when it comes to any situation, an individual should always reflect on what is good and what is wrong, and on his sense of what is good and what is wrong. Second harm is that this would encourage superiority and inferiority. We tell you inside opposition, there's over 3 million gods in India that people believe in, right? If God reveals himself, firstly, side government needs to prove which God is going to reveal himself. All gods are going to reveal themselves. And how will this affect humanity as a whole? I'm going to give you an example. The Chinese people are proud than ever to be yellow. Be called yellow. Let me tell you why. They are as proud as ever to be called yellow because they believe in the yellow emperor and that they are descendants of the yellow emperor. We tell you that when the God reveals himself, who is he going to look like? Who is he going to sound like? What color is he going to be? And this will directly affect humanity and how we treat each other. This will further lead to discrimination and conflicts that they try to defend as, did you want a POI? Okay, thank you. We tell you that this will directly cause discrimination among people itself. They try to come up here and tell you that through the revelation of God, things are going to get better. That is the panacea in the world, right? The revelation of God is panacea and it is the solution to all difficulties and problems. We tell you, absolutely not. It's best that God doesn't really reveal himself and how he looks like. Is anyone timing?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. I think a POI from you.
Alright. Given that God can reveal himself in any way, a burning bush or whatever for that matter, why does it matter that he has to reveal himself in some sort of color or other in order to reap the harms that you talked about in your speech?
I'm not aware that God actually revealed himself through a burning bush. I'm not sure where you read that. But please do clarify in your DPM speech and tell me how that happened. Moving on, we tell you that in their world, we are encouraging a world in which we always have to have immediate validation and confirmation that things may work out fine. And that happens through the revelation of God and that God actually exists. The problem with atheists is, as a person who's uncertain about whether or not God exists, we as an opposition tell you it's much better to constantly believe in God and have that faith in God as a practical and tangible benefit to your whole life as a whole. So what did we tell you inside opposition? We told you two things. Firstly, that the revelation of God is going to lead to a lot of conflict due to who is superior and who is inferior. Secondly, that the value of the intangible, the values of intangible which are also in the form of values, also in the form of beliefs, will not exist on the other side of the world anymore. With that incredibly power to oppose.
Okay, thank you to the leader of opposition for that speech. To continue the side of government, let's call upon the Deputy Prime Minister. Here. Okay, thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister for that speech. To end the debate from side, opening opposition, let's call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Test. Okay. We'll make one thing very clear from the side of opening opposition. Seeing doesn't always equal to believing. We think that the failure of side government is that they have a lack of understanding towards religion and how religious people actually actualize their faith and how individuals will actually act within the religion. We're going to be the side that actually understands that. But before I go on to extending the debate and telling you the kind of tangible benefits and how we better help religion under the side of opposition, firstly, a few responses towards what opening government wanted to say. We think, firstly, we think it was very unfair of them to try to reap the benefits by assuming that just because God reveals himself means that he's necessarily going to come in and provide benefits towards individuals. We don't think that this debate necessarily assumes that, but let's engage with that anyway. Because look at the kind of benefits they want to talk about. Firstly, they wanted to talk about less violence religion. Understand that under their side of the house, they already told us that multiple religions will still exist and individuals will still have ambiguity regarding religion. So the kind of violence that they want to talk about when individuals fight amongst religion will still happen under their side, but far worse because now they have the kind of certainty that they wanted to talk about. This is when individuals are more likely to fight and individuals are more likely to be violent. Secondly, on the idea of individuals looking for short-term benefit that we wanted to talk about, we think that under their side of the house, this is when individuals are less likely to be more likely to talk about short-term benefits like what Kishin wanted to talk about. We think that under our side, individuals will more likely look for long-term benefit from their religion because now they don't see the God. We think that individuals will be working towards the idea of heaven in the future or the idea of God in the future. The fact that you're uncertain about your God makes it far likelier for you to continue buying into the fact that God exists because you have that hope at the end of the day. And thirdly, on the idea how the only way for you to actualize emotion within religion is towards actually seeing your God. We don't think this necessarily happens, right? We think that even in status quo, when individuals pray or individuals go to church or go to mosque, individuals are still able to invoke some sort of connection or emotion towards God. This is why individuals still pray. Individuals still go towards committing things like Hajj, sit down. We think individuals will still have some form of dedication towards religion, and all the benefits we talk about for individuals doing better towards religion can exist far better under our side. We think it's far worse for them when individuals only see the short term and no longer have anything to work towards. And lastly, a clarification. We don't think it was ever our burden to prove why individuals at the end of the day will further join religion, and we think that the idea of individuals actually joining religion like atheists and like that, we're not gonna talk about that as much. Two things to say in my speech. Firstly, the idea of the role of God in religion, because we tell you that this was never responded to, and secondly, on the tangible benefits. But before I go on,
Can you please prove to us if your point of contention is that people are more likely to opt into religion if they are uncertain that God exists? Could you please prove that to us as opposed to our side where it's certain?
I'm going to directly deal with that in my second argument, and I'll point it out to you, right? Firstly, on what Kishin talked about and was never responded to, right? He talked about the value of the fact that certain things were intangible within religion, right? He talked about how God, as the fact that he's omniscient and the fact that you can never see him, or the fact that he creates everything and the fact that your faith is predicated on the fact that there's things you cannot see. This is why in religion, we already have things that you're already made to believe in things that will never be able to be proven. Things like heaven, things like hell, things like angels and Satan, right? We think that when you're able to actualize religion in the form of things you cannot see, this is when your faith is truly tested. This is when your faith is truly able to be built on the fact that you have things that you cannot see sit down. We think that when it comes to the idea of religion, we think that the only way individuals will have a true dedication, even if there's less individuals buying into the religion, this is when individuals are likely to want to buy in towards a religion that actually helps them sit down. We think that when God reveals himself, this is when religion no longer has the value within being divine, right? We think that the fact that religion is so special to us is the fact that things are divine, that things are miracles, and things will happen whether or not you see them or not. Secondly, we think that the value of belief under their side of the house is no longer sustainable, right? Sit down. We think that individuals are now more likely to talk about immediate confirmation of their religion rather on the long term and hoping that God will someday help them. Now, what am I going to talk about in my speech? We're going to talk about how religion will look under our side of the house. We're going to talk about the tangible benefits. Firstly, what will religion look like under our side of the house? Sit down, I think. We think that people under our side of the house may experience a form of uncertainty or a form of doubt within religion, but we're perfectly fine with that because we would tell you that within religion there's already a value within the fact that there's things that you will never be able to understand, no thank you, or the fact that in the end of the day I'm going to struggle and have a form of struggle of belief within the religion that I have. So when individuals do buy into the religion, we don't think that certainty necessarily has to be an important part of this religion. We think that religion can exist when individuals buy into religion within having doubt, and the certainty comes far later. Sit down. We think that secondly, right, when individuals act in a way where they're far less certain of their religion or their belief is truly formed only on the form of the intangible, individuals are more likely to want to stay in the religion for the long term. Sit down. We think that when individuals think about the long-term ideas when it comes to religion, this is when individuals will want to stay on towards their religion. Because let's look at the individuals who buy into religion. Firstly, we think that these individuals are often individuals who may no longer have a form of hope in their lives. That's why people buy into God, people buy into the idea that one day I will have a heaven to believe in. So under their side of the house, you need to tell us if they're going to reveal other things that are divine within religion, right? We think that individuals, when they have the long-term belief that one day they're going to see God or one day they're going to have that hope for that God, this is when individuals are more likely to do good, right? The benefits they want to talk about, things like individuals more likely to be good in their religion, like doing things like charity or protecting individuals who are minorities, are more likely to happen under our side, when individuals now actualize religion as a form of a long-term kind of investment rather than a short-term investment where, oh, as soon as I see God, my faith is suddenly like validated, right? So in conclusion, right, we think under our side of the house, religion may not be, we may have less followers of religion, or individuals may not have the certainty that they have on their side, but individuals will stay for the long term simply because they want to see what happens at the end of the day. Because what is the comparative we bring to you on the side of opposition? We told you the value of intangible things within religion, and we told you how people are more likely to buy into religion and stay and be dedicated to the religion when people are unable to actually actualize God. We think that on the side that cares about religion and how it affects the world, please go with side opening opposition.
Closing opposition. Yeah.
Okay, thank you to the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that speech. To start the debate from the closing half, let's call upon the Member of Government.
panel. Throughout the existence of religion, God has expressed or brought forward what religion should be through multiple different ways. We have had prophets, we've had scriptures, we've had understanding, and individuals coming in and explaining religion in different perspectives. The debate coming about is whether or not the future of religion should exist in a world where God should express himself and therefore expose himself, and whether or not that's beneficial for religion. What the opening government wants to talk about in today's debate. They came up here and told us about how governments get to, how God will be able to convert people and the beneficial outcomes of conversion within these circumstances, and why it's a principal obligation for God to convert these individuals. It solely lies upon the fact that when God shows himself, therefore people will believe that God exists, and therefore they will want to opt into this. We're going to delineate from this level of understanding. So what we're going to talk about is how this process happens, how understanding of religion is better on a world where God exposes himself, how discussions work when God exposes himself within these circumstances. But before that, a really quick clarification. So we're not going to knife our opening government, but we don't believe that the bush thing, the burning bush or whatever signboard they want to talk about is relevant to this debate. We're more than willing to support God coming out himself and revealing himself to in these societies. I am completely fine with that. But what God reveals himself, how this God looks like, and all these things are very meta arguments in this debate, not really relevant. We're more than willing for all gods to reveal themselves and so on, and it can appear in any form or any way. This debate then becomes about if a God reveals himself in a particular religion, is it beneficial for their religion and the interactions between these circumstances? We're more than willing to support the discussions in our world. But before that, a couple of responses towards the opening oppositions, because I think their arguments, even though relevant, exist in a bubble also. So what do you want to talk about? They want to talk about the intangible idea of faith and how religion is principally believed on faith on two premises. One, that faith is absolute. That means when you have an intangible idea, the belief in that intangible idea is the only just way to do so. I don't think this is true. For history of religion, how it developed and so on, for example, what you learn within your Sejarah textbooks of, for example, Islam and everything, it comes from understanding. So there is a book, and for example, the Quran came forward, but it's also a prophet who explains that to you. There's questions that happen, there's debates about the understanding of these things, right? It's not blind faith into a book that's presented to you by God, yet understanding of the words of God that's translated, therefore the belief in the words of God in these circumstances. Is there some things that are intangible in these circumstances? I agree. We have God, we have heaven and hell that are intangible in these areas. But are they intangible because we can't see them, or are they intangible because we can't conceive them in these circumstances? I think just because we can see God and we can see his presence within circumstances or participation within discussions doesn't mean we can conceive or understand what heaven and hell look like or how all these intangible ideas look like. So what we have is intangible ideas that exist, but the understanding of how to develop to those ideas, right? So for example, what actions are just within these circumstances? How should actions be just within circumstances? And the understanding of this. The problem is status quo, and this is also where we're getting it, isn't the fact that there's a rise of atheism, but within religion itself, there's a lack of understanding and a fractional understanding of how religion progresses within these circumstances. We think the revelation of God helps within these circumstances. The second argument that she gave as a one-liner was that, if you have less people on their side of the house, which is a benefit that they want, it's a harm that they want to absorb, they say that people are going to stay for longer. I don't think so. I think blind faith in all circumstances means that these people are more likely to either opt out faster because they are more likely to opt into other things. But two, blind faith in all circumstances, even if they stay for longer, isn't good things in general, right? It means these people don't understand or can't conceive your concept of morality within these circumstances. We're more than willing to have, for example, in the worst case scenario, less people on our side, but the better conceptualization of the morality, that means your followers are more likely to be coherent within these circumstances. Lastly, our last point of clarification is we believe that, look, there are multiple different interpretations of a particular religion, for example, Islam, Christianity, and so on. We're more than willing to support one particular interpretation that's right. It can be different compared to the 10,000 interpretations that exist within the status quo. It can be similar to one of those interpretations. But we believe this is just because God created religion. There should be one objective standard. That standard is God. God should determine this in all circumstances. Next are responses, right? Let's go into argumentations. I have three argumentations to you today. Principal justifications as delineated in the opening. Firstly, how this is an evolution of religion and this is necessary. Lastly, discussions and how this is better on outside the house when God is there and present. Firstly, principal justification. What is religion? What is the purpose of God? We don't think it's simply just to convert, like what opening government wanted to say, but it's to convert with understanding of this principle of concept of morality in order to move forward and progress within these circumstances. Because you understand, therefore you're able to enter heaven and hell because you have become, in essence, the best humans. Just because you do actions that are good, if you cannot logically conceive the reasons why those actions are good and why these things are being done, we don't think that this is just reasons and just cause. It means you can do something that is bad, but if you understand, especially when you say you can do something that is bad, but if you understand something is bad and you work towards forgiveness, then it's something they should fight for. You didn't take me, I'm not going to take you. Take a seat, right? Next, this is the principle of morality and the principle that I think that religion should stand for, the understanding. So how does God's revelation help within these circumstances? We think that it means better discussions within these areas. So if God is present within these areas, it becomes a clear clarification that look, these particular things are wrong, these particular things are irrelevant, or these particular things are immoral. Here are the reasons why these things are immoral. We've seen this in the past with prophets coming down and explaining the religion to you in these circumstances. We say that God would be a better person to be able to do so, a person that is more likely to be remembered for long periods of time. How does this affect discussions on the meta, right? I think there are multiple fractionalized discussions about whether or not God's interest is preserved within these circumstances. When you have an active, omnipresent God in these areas, we think that it's more likely for these people to believe within the ideas, and even if there's conflicts within the short term, we're willing to absorb their harm, because their harm is not mutually exclusive. There are conflicts occurring within their side too. The difference is whether short term versus long term conflicts within discourse. I will tell you with God present means you have more omnipotent discussions within these areas, and this is important.
Point,
therefore,
sir.
yeah, sure.
Why does the conceptualization of morality only exist in your side of the house?
The conceptualization of morality exists better on our side of the house when you have God to clarify faith compared to your side of the house, firstly. Secondly, the conceptualization of morality, even your best case scenario by the most pious individuals, cannot exist because you have different fractionalizations of understandings of particular religions. It means you have 10,000 different interpretations of Islam, Christianity, and so forth. So you can believe in the biases, but you never know whether this particular thing is true. You never achieve the thing. So if God's interest and the interest of the purity of religion, I don't think that you understand what it is on your side of the house. Also more conflicts with the tangible harm. But how does this evolve religion? Really quickly, because it's the principal evolution of, for example, the discourse argument, right? I think that religion has evolved systematically through the past with more understanding. So I see that religion has existed at a point in time when there was no morality. Therefore, we introduced a form of morality which was the books. We allow people to play with those books. These are the different fractionalized ideas that has come from the Quran, different prophets, and so on. The evolution of these ideas and so on is the confirmation of these answers, therefore, right? So it means you've thought through the books, you've thought through the moralities, we've reached the point where we can debate about morality even without the existence of God. So then the question then becomes, what is the answer to our discussions in our thought process? I think the answer is one that's verified. The point is where God exists and reveals himself towards the society. God exists in this way. When he reveals himself to the society, the reason being because one, even if you present the right answers to, for example, a prophet or a new prophet, it's just going to be seen as one of the 10,000. If it's not true and omnipotent God, they can prove himself within these circumstances. But two, if God can prove himself within these circumstances and therefore can verify, we will contest you that religion would therefore evolve towards a point where we are able to understand the right part of the path that God always wants. As a pious individual, there are multiple different interpretations of Hinduism, and I don't know which one I should believe in. I hope that God does reveal himself, because then maybe I'll be able to understand this a lot better. All those reasons, never brother to close. Never brother to closing up.
Again, thank you to member of government for their speech. To start the debate from side, closing opposition. Let's call upon the member of opposition. Hello?
Okay. Give me a second, I need to open my timer. I'm not going to make Kishan's mistake. Wait. Okay, before I start my speech, I just want to have a quick shout out to my partner Shauki, without whom I wouldn't be in the finals today. Can we give him a round of applause? And of course, I would also like to thank my trainers, my friends, I think my family, and whoever that helped me here. Give me a second, I need to organize my papers.
Assalamualaikum. Ladies and gentlemen, let me first tell you what has happened in the rest of the debate. OG came up here and they tried to prove that people can't solve climate change because the solution is God's face, and people will also be better because there's no religion and there's no fear, right? O came up here and they talked about faith and how it's better when it's faith, not knowing, and also about God being yellow. Then the member of God came up here and they basically told us that understanding happens faster, so it's better. Now, let's start the debate coming from CO. We're going to start the debate, we're going to end the debate. So, let's talk about a few things. In my speech, I'm going to talk about absolute truth. Whether it is something that is necessary and whether it is something that is good. And whether it is something which is actually the core and the essence of religion. I will also be talking about, well, I thought I was going to be talking about indoctrination, but opening to kids, but never mind. I'll be talking about God appearing and whether he actually does make people better, and if he does make people better, is that something that's good or is that something that's bad? And also I'll be talking about how if God appears, he makes the whole of humanity something that's incredibly redundant and super boring. So the first one, on whether absolute truth is something that's really necessary, right, or whether it's something that's good, and whether it's actually the essence and the crux of religion. We would argue to you, coming from the side of closing opposition, that absolute truth isn't necessarily the crux of religion. Usually people will tell you that the reason that you opt into a religion is because you're looking for an absolute truth. But the reality is that more often than not, some people opt into religions for other reasons. Sometimes it's because of comfort, for things like hope, etc., etc. Sometimes it's an avenue to better yourself because there are solid morals and solid principles that have been laid out to you through scriptures and teachings. But sometimes it's also just a better platform for you to improve yourself and help yourself help other people. So sometimes religion isn't just about finding the truth and finding God. Sometimes it's about yourself. Sometimes it's a little bit selfish, but sometimes this is the reason why people use religion, or rather opt into a religion. And sometimes people aren't in a religion because it's the truth. Sometimes they're just in it because it's what resonates with them the best. It's what makes them a better person as opposed to what could be the truth. It makes them feel better about themselves and feel better when they help other people as opposed to what could actually be the truth, which they might not resonate with, right? So religion and opting into religion isn't necessarily always about finding absolute truth. Sometimes it's about yourself, and that's equally as important and equally as justified. No thank you. Now secondly, God appearing and whether it makes people better, and if it does make people better, is it good or is it bad? If there's a POI, I want from closing. Okay, so God appearing making people better. So we admit that if God appears, obviously people are going to be super psyched and super freaked out, and they're going to do everything that He says. Because before this, all of us didn't believe in God, and suddenly boom, He's there and we're like, oh, right. So about that drink that I had last week, I didn't do that. So that was me, right? So there's a lot of fear now, no thank you. There's a lot of fear now, and there's a lot of like psycho crazy people realizing that, we gotta do these things, we gotta do whatever God tells us, right? And all these things will supposedly make them better people. Now let's go through this idea bit by bit. Now there's something that I'm pretty sure for the Muslims in the crowd, or more specifically the Malay Muslims in the crowd, we've always heard this coming from our ustazahs whenever we were younger. Kalau dengar alam kubur, jerit-jerit dekat alam kubur, you'll never sin in your life. Right? So if you hear the screams of people who are in hell, or the screams of people who are in basically bad places, whatever we believe, right? You will never sin in your life. So let's explore this idea even more. No thank you. Let's explore this idea even more. We tell you that religion isn't necessarily always about just being right, it's about learning to be right. The motto that I have studying in MCKL is that I need to go through my road to A star, right? My good grades. And there can't be a road to A star if you start at A star. You gotta start from the bottom and work your way up, right? And there's a value in this. So the idea that, kalau dengar alam kubur, you'll never sin in your life, it defeats the purpose of having self-control. It defeats the purpose of making good decisions and rationalizing your decision. And ultimately, it defeats the purpose of religion. Because religion and the idea of nafsu, or I think desires, is that an accurate word? Desire? Yeah. So the idea of desire and the idea of the guidelines that have been set for you, not a big brother up there telling you exactly what to do and policing all of your actions. The reason why all these things are here together in unison, no thank you, is because I offered you one just now, you don't want, right? No more. So the reason why these things are here is because we as human beings are meant to evolve, we're meant to develop, we're meant to learn from our mistakes and move forward and use all these guidelines and use all these, okay, maybe not use all these desires, but learn from the desires and try to rationalize and think through all of our actions and weigh it on our own, right? Based on the guidelines that are there and based on whether what we think is good and what is wrong. So more than that, it defeats the purpose of religion, because if religion is all about learning and trying to improve yourself through progress, through perseverance, and through sheer dedication, right, in spirits of wanting to save yourself or in the hopes that you're going to see God one day, right, it defeats the purpose, because basically you're having a shortcut straight to the end where God is suddenly there and all is right. No thank you. So on top of that, the boring community, and I think this is the most important part about it, the evolution of morals, the evolution of principles. So basically, we would assume, right, besides a few atheists or whatever that will still be around, it doesn't matter. But if everyone starts acting the same way, because obviously if God appears, we'll assume that the assumption in this debate is that there'll be one God that appears. And when He does appear, we believe that once He does, everyone will try and act the same way because, they're really scared of God, they're really psyched about God, and they want to do what He says, right? So when everyone acts the same way, now we'll assume that there's no more bad in the world. If there are, it's very, very little. Wait, I'll take one from closing first, actually.
Yeah, look, your development of individuals through nafsu, your development of individuals through nafsu or whatever can still exist at the point that there's a clarification of the right way and the right path, because they follow their right path instead of the wrong paths that exist in status quo, right?
No, you're meant to go to the wrong path. You're meant to go to the wrong path and learn from these mistakes. Come on, audience. Oh, okay, never mind. Right, so yeah, you're meant to go through all these bad things. And if there's no more bad in the world, there's nothing for you to learn from. The idea about principles, morals, getting into the wrong religion, getting into the right religion, we don't want a homogeneous society. We want a diverse society. If we go with the side of government, there's nothing for us to learn from, nothing for us to grow from. You delegitimize human experience and human history because now there's nothing else for us to learn from. You don't learn from your mistakes anymore, and you delegitimize the people who've already made the effort to learn from their mistakes and learn from their past. You delegitimize progress, and ultimately you delegitimize and you, what's the word? Basically, you make religion look really bad and you defeat the purpose. That's the point that I'm trying to make. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, I might not be the most pious person ever, right, as opposed to maybe Habib, right, but I'm trying, guys, and I think the effort is something that's probably a lot more valuable than someone who was perfect from the beginning. Road to A-star instead of starting at A-star.
Okay, thank you to member of opposition for that speech. To end the debate from side government, let's call upon the government whip. Here.
Wow, Shoki. Too early for his uncle. Nak pergi.
Oh my goodness, Shoki, behave please. Questions and answer. Forgot my.
Today in my speech, I'll present two issues. Firstly, in direct clashing towards closing opposition as to the absolute truth and whether religion within itself promotes this form of absolute truth as a form of benefit that individuals on the ground, whether they are pious or not, can obtain benefits from. But a second issue as well as to the issue of ambiguity that came up from side opening opposition. But before that, a very important clarification that I think has to be made within today's debate. Before understanding as to how certain tangible benefits that have been presented within today's debate manifest, you first have to understand what religion in itself is and how religion in itself teaches certain things that ultimately will help individuals go back to the path of enlightenment. And when you're talking about an individual like God who spreads this form of morals and sets a moral code as to how people should act in order to maximize their form of fulfillment, whether it is within this life or within the afterlife, I think that God not only has the priority to make sure that the form of religion that you're spreading is in itself something which is accurate and factually accurate, considering that humans have bounded ourselves to the human limitation of interpretation. But more importantly, I think that a more accurate representation of this form of religion, accurate information coming from the very person or very being who has created this form of morality, I think is extremely important to humanity. But a very important thing to also know is that humans simply don't know. Humans have a lot of questions that have no answers, which is why even within the status quo, humans look to religion because the religion has those answers, right? Everything is intangible within religion because we assume them to be forever intangible, as things which forever will be intangible, without necessarily understanding that at some point or another, when maybe after we die, these things will fall into conception and we'll probably have to live through those things too. Simply, we have drawn things as intangible simply because we do not understand these things. Things like understanding that some things aren't in your control, or things that understanding that heaven and hell may or may not exist. But although I understand that there are certain ambiguous things that exist within religion, I think that religion relies on its core principle of ultimatum, that sins will always be bad, that hell will be waiting for you. I think it's unfair for Closing Opposition to come up here and shove what Roshan decided to tell you, right? His principle as to how, when you're talking about an ultimatum, and when you're talking about the evolution of religion and the way that religion can evolve to be the best version of itself, that's been fought within the status quo because of humans, I think it's extremely important to also know that the way for you to improve these forms of things is exactly through enforcing and allowing God to come and reveal himself to the very people who has created. But two issues. Firstly, as to the absolute truth that Closing Opposition wanted to talk about. He told you that rationalization of morality and decision is going to be flawed because there's a tycho who's going to tell you exactly what to do, force you to do those things and somewhat or something. I would argue that even within our world, there'll be individuals who will still make those mistakes. You cannot assume that just because God has revealed himself, suddenly everyone is going to go to the right path. I would also say that most individuals go onto wrong paths believing that they are the right paths because of the failed interpretation of humans as to what religion really stands for. Especially when you're talking about the rationalization as to the morality and decisions that you make. I think that God and religion can play an incredibly big role in determining how you rationalize these things. For example, rationalizing that you shouldn't hurt anybody because ultimately you will end up in hell and be weighed out after the day of judgment when you're talking about the sins that you created in this certain life. I think that rationalization isn't limited to this vague ambiguity that both sides of the house wanted to talk about, by the way. I think that more importantly, that rationalization can better exist when there's an ultimatum and definite standard as to what is good and what is bad. No thank you, which is exactly what religion stands for. But secondly, they start talking about fear and how it manifests because people are unsure what to do and then they get really scared because they cannot go to the right path. Maybe the few drinks that Ali had last week are going to lead him to hell, right? I think that more importantly, fear doesn't manifest in necessarily doing your sin, but being unsure as to what you should do and how what you do will lead to what outcome. I think that the ambiguity and the fear doesn't manifest from the fact that religion tells you exactly what is right and wrong, but rather the religion or the interpretations of religion that exist within the status quo that we have to fix ultimately assume that ambiguity is the very stance that you want to go for. No thank you later. But more importantly, as to the absence of a wrong path and how people will never learn, I think it's been very clear that just because a God comes down and tells you maybe you shouldn't hurt other people because it's a sin and it's a definite and you definitely go to hell after the day of judgment, that doesn't necessarily mean that humans won't make mistakes. Simply because God has created you to make mistakes. So how does this policy necessarily impact humans? I think it is within the interpretation of religion that humans ultimately subscribe to. When there's the true person who has basically created all of the moralities that you have wanted to interpret within the past centuries or decades, ultimately telling you this is what real religion is, this is what you should actually follow, instead of some random person from your mosque that probably doesn't really understand the value as to the importance that God and Allah has given to you, right? Has taught you and has told you that you should follow ultimately at the end of the day. In a bit. Secondly, as to the ambiguity, which was also something which was coexistent as to the two parties that came out from this side, right? Is it something that has to exist? And I think that this was a very big question and contention as to today's debate. Firstly, in the value of religion, I do not agree that value of religion is exclusive to ambiguity existing. I think that the value in religion comes from its ability to provide answers to questions that humans have so that they're able to achieve some form of enlightenment. But more importantly, I think that religion isn't exclusively ambiguous. As I've said before, religion also relies on the culture or conception of ultimatum that certain things are definite and certain things are definitely going to happen within your life or the afterlife. But secondly, as to seeing is not always believing, I agree, but I also argue that knowing is believing. Knowing in your heart that God exists usually leads to the best believers. But having that ability to know means that for some individuals you have to see or have someone tell you what necessarily is right. Before I continue,
what's the point of God giving free will to you if it sounds like your actions will all be dictated?
God doesn't give you free will. You can't decide whether you're going to go to hell or not. You're not going to decide whether you're going to heaven or not. The more important thing with God in essence is that He has understood and conceptualized the fact that humans will never be the perfect children that He had wanted to conceptualize in the beginning. So His solution to that problem is to give them the ability and teach them certain moral codes that will lead them back to that form of enlightenment in the beginning and in the first place. I think that the form of enlightenment exists better on our side when you have the individual who has told you the certain moral codes that you should be following and tell you that these are the moral codes that you should ultimately subscribe to. But in the worst case, when there are some individuals who do not subscribe to these moral codes, I argue at that point in time, these are individuals who have actively and with informed decisions as to the real value of religion by the core creator of religion, will ultimately make these decisions at a better rate. But more importantly, I also think as to when you're talking about certain things like one day there will be hope, and the idea that certain people rely on this ambiguity of hope that exists. Okay, so we're going to opt to put that hope right in front of you, right now, so that they will no longer have to stay and dedicate simply because there's an ambiguity that exists. But even God doesn't tell you to sit and wait. God tells you to take action of certain things that happen within your life. God tells you to take actions as to the wrong things that have happened and the good things that will happen ultimately. I don't think you can rely in a world in which religion will ultimately and forever be ambiguous when religion in itself is an ultimatum we're extremely proud to propose.
Thank you to the government for the speech. To end the debate, let's call upon the opposition with.
Mike.
Hey, mic's over here. Oh, mic's over here. Contesting dulu tau. Kita boleh
What's wrong with these people? The first live stream. What's wrong with you?
Before I start my speech, I like to say thanks to Abid, thanks to Kaki. I'm really happy that I'm in the final for the first time. And Ali told me to do whatever I want because he doesn't care anymore. Shh, you're not meant to do that. Okay. I forgot my title, bro. Wait, you can use my. Use my. I'm really happy that Ali finally gave me a good speech after 5 rounds. That's why I was my partner to begin with. But before I start my speech, I'll say Audrey's still sassy, Roshan talking nonsense. Gonna respond to the nonsense just after this. But let's actually, start a bit. Okay, so let's actually talk about the idea of God, right? And this is something that came out in Roshan's speech at the end of his speech. He said he's Hindu. He wants God to tell him what's right. You know what that sounds like? That's like asking a teacher, "Ma'am, can I know the answer for this test? That's my final exam." You want God to tell you what's true. You want God to tell you everything that's morally right. We believe that's extremely wrong because we believe religion is a concept already actualized. This was very important in Ali's speech that was never dealt with. It's completely shelved, right? Let's actually talk about what self-actualization is. Self-actualization and religion, right? People don't go into religion because people think that, oh, my friends go to religion. People go to religion because they believe in that religion themselves. They study that religion. And right now on our side, sure, we have many religions. That's why it's important for you to look at this religion and understand what religion you want to go to, because you understand that this is the devotion that you had towards your religion. When God comes out here and tells you, when God comes out, now you're gonna have the idea that, oh, what I'm saying is wrong, and you're saying that that's whatever. But before that,
Shaki, look, we tell you that people can still make mistakes even though God tells you there's a right path. That's why we have forgiveness, and that's why God tells you to forgive your mistakes and understand. The difference being is that people will still make mistakes on both sides of the house. It's whether they recognize that mistake and move forward in morality, that's the debate. How do you help on your side of the house?
The problem here, and the reason that what he wants to talk about, he says that both sides will make mistakes. The problem here, you're having God to fix your mistake. It's not you. That's the main problem here. You as an individual is the individual supposed to learn your mistakes. Not God telling you, hey bro, you did that wrong. Hey, I don't think you'll be POI, right? Sit down, bro. Hey. So the problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is when you don't self-actualize and learn from your mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. We're not saying making mistakes is wrong. It's a way of life. The reason why your idea is because my dad told me you made mistakes in your path. Ladies and gentlemen, so the reason you're here and not
in fucking not in Harvard is because your mistakes to do so, ladies and gentlemen. This is when you're able to learn from life. Because when you're able to learn from the past mistakes, this is what makes you a better human being and a better person in general, ladies and gentlemen. We already took your PI, bro. Sit down. Okay, so let's actually talk about the debate, right? Let's actually talk about what our side told you, right? Let's actually deal with those cases. First case, they want to talk. OG's case was very simple. God comes out, better world, better people, better person. What world does that mean? See, if God comes out, under their side, they're already taking behind. I won't be taking your behind, please don't stand up. It's really disrespectful. The problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is opening government's case was contingent on the idea of people, when God comes out, people are joining, it's going to join this, it's going to believe religion is real and people's going to be good and whatnot. The problem here, and let's actually understand what's going to happen there. Have you guys heard about communism? That's what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. When nobody makes mistakes, it's a path where everybody is similar and everybody's the same. Similarly, like how everybody was serious and now you see me, you're like, what the hell is happening, right? That's the same idea here. The idea here is when you have a simple world and you have individuals when you have God telling you what's right and what's wrong and in front of your face, this makes a problem and makes you be harder for you to self-actualize. The problem with Roshan's speech, and sure, the problem with CG's case was because they wanted to talk to you about this idea of ultimatum and how it makes you better understanding and better have proper discussion to do so. Let's actually talk about how discourse works and let's talk about how it happens at the both sides. Firstly, discourse is when you meet the individual that you have, is when you have an argument and you have a proper discussion between the two parties. Right? For example, you're having a fight with your friend, you talk to that friend about that problem and you have a proper discussion to do so. So you end that solution to do so. So that's when you have a proper discussion outside. But then you meeting God and having like, oh, God, it's better for you to self-actualize that problem and actually solve it yourself, not having a proper discussion and having God to do it with you. But before that, sure, yes.
Yeah, you still have, religion on your side of the house. Religion still tells you things that's moral and immoral. Going and drinking is still going to bring you to hell and all these things. So how does self-actualization happen in a world where religion still tells you all these things on your side of the house?
Religion never said, if you drink, you're wrong. Religion never said, if we're gonna discriminate. Meaning to say, this is what I mean. Religion never said if an individual does harm, he's no longer part of his religion. Religion accepts you regardless of how holy you are. The problem here is when the problem under their side is when they want to come out here and tell us that, making problems are mistakes and making self-actualization. The problem here is when you make mistakes a lot in your life, somebody's going to come up to you and tell you that she's wrong. That's how you learn self-actualization. The reason why we are here today is because of past mistakes of our past, and we're able to learn from that now. It's almost 6 minutes, I won't be taking it back, so don't try asking. So the problem here, ladies and gentlemen, and the problem with Roshan's speech is mainly contingent upon the idea that if you are able to, it's basically the idea if your religion is all, it's basically the idea that you have a proper discussion because God comes out, God's going to tell you, and making mistakes better, and you're going to make it faster. Because God is there and it's going to be faster than you learning it yourself. The problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is much more better and the process is supposed to be slow, but at the end of the day, you believe that's the correct religion with you. You don't have an individual to do that for you. You don't go to that religion because of fear. You believe that in that religion, and believe that's the mainly most important to do so. Before I end my speech, I like to give one quick argument. MDHO Shalom, please notice me. I'm from MDHO Remah, the problem is in this school, we kept losing to IIU, Actually, let's be IIU together.
Okay, thank you to all teams. You may cross the floor, shake hands.